It'll be 1 to go this time by. Coming to the green, buddy, coming to the green. Let's go get him. Go, 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 Dick, 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 go, 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 go.
Get your motor running. Head out on the highway.
Yahoo Sports. To follow up Claire's last question, it may be a matter of semantics here, but Brian France had said there would be an adjustment to the policy. The way I'm reading this and hearing this, this is a total brand new policy. Everything else has been ripped up, and this is, you're going to come to the forefront. Is that a fair assessment?
No, I believe the handout says it's an amendment to the policy. So,
a couple months ago, there'd be an adjustment coming. So that's what he said.
yeah, and this would be an adjustment. And if you look at the language when we have it in January, the nuts and bolts of our policy remains. When you look at a lot of the things we have in place on lists or no list, or what do we have the right to test for, all that's the same. Nothing's changed. Dr. Black hasn't changed. Aegis hasn't changed. So there's a lot of things that we thought were very positive coming in, and these are just things, I guess the best way to say it would be that are layered on top of the program that existed.
We're adding random testing.
Bob Pockris, NASCAR scene. Steve, I mean, there are lots of drugs that are illegal, and so if somebody is found with those drugs in their system, is that considered substance abuse?
Yeah, that is a hypothetical question. You mean if they're found by who? Arrested or?
Found in your test.
Oh, absolutely. If someone has illegal drugs in their system, was that the question? Yes.
Dustin Long, Landmark Newspaper. Steve, I have a few quick questions. With the random policy, first of all, how many more tests do you expect to issue next year, per week or overall next year as what you've done this year or in the past?
Yeah, I think, as Dave Rodman asked before, this will be a significant policy. It'll be every week, just about every week, where we'll have Aegis personnel on staff, and we'll alert the media when there is a positive test. But suffice to say, there'll be a significant number of tests administered every weekend.
So we're looking at for a year worth like a couple hundred more tests or something like that than what's been issued this year. I mean, something like that. Can you further define what significant is, please?
I think we're comfortable with significant. The competitors are comfortable with significant. So that's where we'll leave it.
I also just want to verify in the paperwork here. It says team owners must verify all licensed crew members have been treated by a certified lab prior to the start of the season. My question is, a lot of companies, teams will test anyway. If I've been hired by a company like a couple years ago, does that meet the requirement, or is that something that suddenly you're going to have all these teams start testing these individuals here in the next few months?
We will require in the next few months that the teams produce to us that their licensed crew members have passed the substance abuse test that's certified by SAMHSA. And the reason for that is, again, to have that baseline for everyone that's participating in this program, and that's drivers, officials, and licensed crew members.
One last thing is, I was slightly confused on something you said. Just wanted to clarify. You talked about the thorough testing. You mentioned narcotics, beta blockers, and steroids. So when there's a random test, is that essentially what I'm being tested for, or this test, is it more all-encompassing, or would, is there essentially two different tests that I could get one for narcotics, beta blockers, and steroids, or if you think I'm doing something else, I would get something that would be a little bit more wide-ranging?
No, I think what I said was, what are the key things that are tested for in a normal substance abuse test, or what is a comprehensive test? And those are the three categories. But again, we will test, and our policy will be broad-ranging, and any substance that shows up that's been abused will show up in our tests.
Steve, the advantage of having no list of banned substances is that you don't pinch yourself in, obviously. A potential disadvantage is sort of, particularly with the teams who are in a more indirect fashion, it seems to me that there's some potential for results to be used arbitrarily. Like, for instance, if there were a college basketball team and testing, there have to be safeguards to prevent, say, the guy who's averaging 30 points and 10 rebounds getting away with more than the guy who's a bum that they want to get rid of his scholarship. So what I'm saying is that without some specific list, it seems to me that there's the potential for some people to be drummed out of the sport where others wouldn't be because everything is not in place.
Well, I think you could say that, Monty, if we were the ones administering the tests, but we're not. This is done by an outside agency. They do this every day for NCAA tournament teams. For
And they don't know who they're testing.
I'm sorry.
Certification of team testing, isn't that a little bit different, not quite as direct, because it's not going under AGIS, it's going through another setup?
Yeah, let me clear that up, Monty. That's fair. The baseline test will be through SAMHSA, but when the crew members are at the track, the over-the-wall crew members, it'll all be done by AGIS. So anything we do at the track will be administered by AGIS. And part of the reason, Monty, I think that's a fair question, is we want an outside agency to administer the tests. We think that's the most fair thing to do, to take any potential bias, as you said, out of it. So AGIS will administer those tests, and Dr. Black and our medical review officer, Renata Bloom, is the one who ultimately makes the call on whether or not this is a true positive test or not.
Yeah, I have a question about the cost of the program. Can you tell us how much this testing program is likely to cost NASCAR? And as a follow-up or secondary question, the aspect of this in which the car owners must conduct the internal team substance abuse testing, do the car owners pay for that testing? Thanks.
Yeah, really two things. I don't want to get into the overall cost, but NASCAR will be responsible for all of the tests, the preseason baseline tests for the competitors and officials, and then all of the random tests throughout the year. The car owners will be responsible for the cost of their licensed crew member tests prior to the start of the season.
Jerry
And
Bunkhouse.
Monty, one last thing. Jim brought up a good point. When you look at the way that AGIS will do the computer program is really by a number. So it'll be random generation. They'll see a number that will come up, and we'll associate that number with a particular driver. So the people who are involved in our testing do this every day and really aren't as familiar with who's who. It'll just be a number to them of who's coming in to administer a test to.
Jerry Bunkowski, Yahoo Sports again. Steve, playing devil's advocate for a second, let's say a driver or a team member, whatever, is injured in the course of their performance of their duties, and they're given medication that's prescribed by a legally licensed physician. That may run counter to your policy, but it's not for performance enhancement, it's to help them get better. Where do you guys draw the dividing line on what is and what isn't performance enhancing if a doctor who's legally a legal doctor allows them to have that prescription?
Yeah, again, that's no different than it is today. We've had drivers injured who are taking prescription medications who have alerted us to what they may be taking. We've had those consultations with Dr. Black, and in the instances where our outside expert on individual cases feels as it's okay, we'll obviously let that go, and that doesn't change with our policy today. And we'd make the determination, as we would with anything, any substance. We've always reserved the right not to allow someone to compete.
JPanel, HardcoreRaceFans.com. Is there any sort of appeals policy in place here, and is there any sort of leeway if a driver can't make the test right there? Is there another? Is it his responsibility to set up another time, or is it if you miss it, you fail?
Yeah, a couple things on the random aspects of the testing. If you do not show up for the random test, that'll be viewed as a failed test. We'll obviously work with the competitors, knowing it's a busy schedule. But in an instance of a person not showing up for a test when they were selected, again, no different than today. When we tap someone on the shoulder and they refuse, that's a failure. When you look at an appeals process, the same policy will be in place as it is today. When a sample is taken, there's an A and a B sample. If a true positive comes up on the sample, we immediately have Dr. Black, who alerts our medical review officer, and at that time she contacts the donor and says, is there any reason that you're taking XYZ or whatever showed up? And at that time a discussion takes place. The donor has the ability at that time to request a sample of the B test to be taken. And then after all that data is collected, a decision is made by the medical review officer as to whether we think that person had a true positive test.